Faster by, good afternoon. Welcome along to Manx Radio's Mannin Line for Thursday, 18th of January. Andy's still a bit under the weather, so get well soon, Andy. Alex in for the next hour. On an open line, what would you like to talk about today? Well, the Chief Minister has been defending his economic strategy. There was a bit of a mini rebellion whilst presenting his annual report in Tynwald. Many of you have got comments about that, especially on our Facebook page. What do you think about it? Are the government out of touch? Or are they doing the right thing and looking at the bigger picture? Also, what do you think about the Steam Packet's communications? What's their PR like? We'll talk about that. And, of course, we might talk about swimming pools. Thank you very much to the people who were texting in yesterday. An interesting text just come in from Fran saying, Alex, can you explain what are Manx Radio's reasons that few texts or emails are read out on the Mannin Line? Is this down to political editors wanting their views on the airwaves? Fran, it's a phone-in programme, primarily. And phone calls will always take precedent over the number of texts and emails we'll get through. We read them all. We read some of them out. But, get off your keyboard and stop texting and give us a call. 66 13 68. If you want to have your opinion on the air, everyone is most welcome. We'll try and get texts and comments as much time as we have. We'll fit them in. So, yes, let's talk about the Steam Packet. We haven't talked about them for a while. Something that came out of this week's Tynwald question and answer session was an admission that there is room for the Steam Packet to expand the information it gives to people in a timely manner. Okay, that came from Treasury Minister Alex Allinson and was off the back of inquiries from first Chris Thomas and then Claire Christian about the manner in which the Steam Packet directors were appointed. And Dr Allinson was asked about the ability to appoint new directors if a weakness was perceived in the setup that needed filling.
Certainly, if the board were to decide that they needed extra assistance by a member bringing in a different skill set, that is absolutely down to them. There is no finite limit on the number of non-executive directors that can be there. And really then they would approach Treasury as a shareholder asking for that extra skill and that extra nomination. Certainly in terms of perhaps looking at other skills that can be brought into the company, particularly whether that be in terms of communications. I know that the board are looking at that to improve their communications with the general public.
It's great that they can bring in other assistance for the skills gaps. Can the Minister just advise why that wasn't a decision under the circumstances in this change of environment then over the past 6 months?
I don't necessarily think there is a missing skills gap. What the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company have been really trying to do is improve their communications both through their website and through social media, and I think that's been relatively successful. What they're looking for in the future is expanding that amount of information that's provided to people in a timely manner, and obviously working with their marketing department to do that perhaps will lead to an expansion of staffing there to provide those services. But certainly they're very cognizant of public feedback in terms of the booking mechanisms, the ability to operate online. They have been successful in expanding their online presence, making it easy for people to both change bookings and make original bookings. But certainly going forward, they are looking at ways of making the interaction with the company as easy as possible for all users of it, whether that be commercial or residential.
The Treasury Minister, Dr Alex Allinson, of course, who effectively the Treasury, the shareholder of the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company, owned by us and bought by for us with our taxpayers' money. What do you think about the communication from the Steam Packet? I can tell you from here at Manx Radio, when there is an issue on the Manxman, we normally hear from passengers on board before we hear from the Steam Packet. Okay? Are they relying too much on social media? Is this that argument about everything has to be digital nowadays and digital is not the panacea to everything? Or do you think the opposite, that actually we do need to drag the world into the 21st century and really everything should be digital? Okay, I'd love to hear your thoughts. 66 13 68. Give us a call, or of course you can text 166 at 177, or you can WhatsApp as well. Let's have a look. Andy, thank you very much. Says regarding the story about Joni Farragher when it came to the refugee policy that was discussed. Andy says, Alex, Miss Farragher is unhappy that the island hasn't accepted refugees. Can she guarantee that what happened in Canada won't happen here? in terms of crimes? Well, I would imagine, Andy, no, you can't. You can't guarantee that at all, whether it's a refugee, whether it's someone who's an immigrant to the island, or whether it's someone who's native to the island. But we'll feature that a little later on, because one of the issues that came out of that story with the Douglas East MHK, Joni Farragher, she accused the Cabinet Office of feigning powerlessness when it comes to formulating a refugee policy. And I'll give you a little bit of a look-see into this, because effectively it sounds like another story that it mirrors another Joni Farragher request, which was the DOI and the bus station. Go away, come back with a plan. They came back saying, we have no plan. On this occasion, Joni seems to state that go away, come back with a policy, and they didn't come back with a policy. She moved yesterday that the refugee policy statement and report was not received, and arguing that more significant work needs to be done by the Council of Ministers to develop a policy that takes the opportunity to give the overall evidence-based picture of benefit versus cost. And Siobhan Fletcher has this report.
Ms Farragher's views were rejected by Cabinet Office Minister Kate Lord-Brennan, who disagreed.
Here we have another motion before us now, which instead of actually, again, arguing for the mover of this motion to actually say what make the case to Tynwald as to what should happen, we instead have an attack on a government policy, which I would say has been well thought out, and actually there has been engagement with members.
But Ms Farragher won support from some of her political colleagues, including Arbury, Castletown and Maloo MHK Tim Glover and Garth MHK Daphne Kane.
Being brought to my feet following the comments given by the Minister of the Cabinet Office on this. I feel compelled to state for the record that this isn't an acceptable way to treat members of this honourable court. The mover has outlined compelling reasons that this document isn't what Tynwald asked for, and it isn't. The motion as passed asks for a policy, but this document is a list of reasons why we can't have a policy.
I fully support the motion and would like to see a policy to resettle refugees being considered on an ongoing basis and not just as an emergency in response to a war.
In short, the Douglas East MHK had tried to convince Tynwald that an independent policy on refugees should be developed, rather than one dependent on our relationship with the UK.
It's immeasurably diminishing and disempowering that government documents use the language utilised here to try to feign powerlessness on the part of our proud country. We built the Laxey Wheel, we raised the Bee Gees, and you might not know this, but we are the oldest continuous parliament in the world. We're not unable to do anything. It seems that we're unwilling, and that's a different thing.
In the end, Minister Lord-Brennan was successful in getting the court to accept the policy. She spoke to Manx Radio's political correspondent, Phil Gaughan.
You came over as quite defensive in terms of your comments. Why was that?
So for those members wishing to argue strongly for this, they are perhaps not happy with the government's position, which has been to say that actually because we were asked to put forward, the commitment was for a long-term policy. So the policy that's been put out by the Council of Ministers to say that, actually it needs to be for the government of the day to activate any response. And in doing so, it's really important that the Council of Ministers should have due regard to the resource available of the island, the ability of government to cope with such support, things like housing and education, the availability and support of third sector and the community. In essence, we're saying, if you're going to be a responsible government, you should take account of these things, not just be writing to the UK saying, hello, can we please participate in these schemes, and will you make that happen for us?
Siobhan Fletcher reporting there. Right, 12:15. What's your thoughts on this? Give me a call, 66 13 68, about this or any topic that's getting your goat, and it'd be great to have a chat on today's Mannin Line. Thank you very much to Mark, who says, here's a refugee policy idea. We don't take any in. We owe nothing to the world. The job of the Manx government is to put the Manx people first, and Miss Farragher should stick to doing her job. Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Don't mince your words on that one. This story's been on our Facebook page, actually. Quite a few comments on there. Very much of a similar matter. Thank you to Chris, who I think has taken a bit more of a lighter side on this one. Why would refugees want to come to the Isle of Man? They've done nothing wrong. Thank you for that, Chris. What else have we got here? John Clark says, sums up this current administration. So this topic is at the top of their constituents' concerns at this time. I don't think so. Brenda says, look after the locals first, then worry about refugee policy. Russell says that Miss Farragut should concentrate on the people who voted her in before any of this nonsense. And you see, there's two sides to this, isn't there? That otherwise, you do find this response quite a lot of nothing to do with us, let's focus on us here in the Isle of Man. Very Lord of the Flies sort of mentality you get on a small island. Until then, one day you might need help from somewhere else, and then suddenly you're expecting people to be more sort of charitable towards you. We had a similar opinion when the reciprocal health agreement was going to be withdrawn from the UK. How dare they do that to us? And the UK will be sitting there going, well, why do we have to help out that little island? And you can see why there's two sides to every debate on that, and also other people's opinions that actually maybe we should be a little more, do unto others as would be done to us. I know that sounds very much like a Christian quote, but obviously that's a whole nother topic of having maybe those kind of values inside the Tynwald chamber. And actually it comes back down to Miss Farragut and also Mr. Hooper again. But we'll keep away from that for today, unless you want to talk about it. Keep your comments coming, 166 177. Who's this one we got here? Mike D. Thank you, Mike D. Alex, I'd just like to respond to Mr. Cannon's claims that his island plan is evidence the island is moving forwards. The state of our health system, the heritage railways, daily closures of businesses suggest we're moving back to the 70s. I think this was part of the debate, really, in Tynwald, that you've got this lovely report and everyone's been talking a lot for the last 2 years since the election. What's happened? Are you feeling like we're a more prosperous island? We're accepting this report, we're moving forward, we're trying to build the population. Do you feel things are getting better? Let me know your thoughts. 66 1368. And, thank you very much, Fran. It's unlikely that our MHKs will do anything with the steam packet. They do not want to lose their alleged free travel, would they? Tell you what, Fran, give me evidence. Okay? Stop sitting there behind a keyboard and pretending that you know every conspiracy and every conspiracy's through. If you give me some evidence, great, we'll discuss it. If not, stop wasting your time on texts. Right, coming up to 20 past 12, and we've got some people on the lines, which is good because we like that. 66 13 68 is the number to always call if you want to have a bit of a chin wag. And we've got Wilf on. Hello, Wilf. Oh, no sign of Wilf on that line. Let's try again. Hello, Wilf.
Hi.
Ah, there we go.
That's better. That's better. You're a bit faint.
Oh, I'll shout louder.
Right. I'm half deaf, you see. Anyway, I'm just reading the paper here, the Examiner, and it says don't believe everything they read in the paper. That's the normal thing. But this thing, this is unbelievable what I'm reading here. It says council pledges to reprofile Douglas Beach. And what they're saying here is they're going to put big diggers on the beach and push the gravel around all over the place instead of taking it away. If you take it away, how can it be thrown onto the promenade if it's not there? I mean, that's the simple solution.
This is a topic of conversation because they've been doing it with the seaweed for years. They kind of brush it out in big piles with diggers, leave it in big lumps on the low tide mark, and it gets washed back in at high tide.
Yes, instead of taking it away somewhere and dumping it. Anyway, it says here, it's been suggested to buy a bigger digger to do this. And all they've got to do is get the likes of JCK or Carey's or something, and they come and take it away for nothing.
Well, the question is...
It can be used, it can be crushed and put on the roadway or whatever. It's good stuff.
Well,
and if it's gone, it cannot come back onto the prom, can it?
Well, that is a good point, although I'd imagine, of course, that, let's be honest, there's plenty of stones and soil and silt out in the sea still to be washed up. But in terms of Douglas Beach, the topic of the groins has come up for years, and Douglas Council, Douglas Corporation, whatever they were at the time, still insists that the removal of the groins was a good thing undertaken by expert advice. Yet, when you look at the state of Douglas Beach now compared to in previous years, it doesn't seem to be in better condition now that the groins aren't there holding the sand in.
The groins were put there to hold the sand. I've explained this before, but they were put there to hold the sand for the visitors so they could sit on the deck chairs on the sand. Mm-hmm. That's what groins were put there for. The groins were taken away because they were of no use after they put the breakwater in, because that took away the longshore drift. You've only got the only wind you've got now is out of the town, straight out to sea, and straight in easterly. There's no sideways now because it's blocked off by the breakwater, and the other side, of course, is Onken Head.
Well,
you've got no sideways drift anymore.
You do have sideways drift up towards the Queen's Promenade and things like that. The breakwater only interferes with the areas of Harris Prom and just onto the areas of it's basically Empress Prom, isn't it, where the Empress is? So what's the reason for the fact that the beach, if you look at the height of the beach where the Empress Hotel is in that area, it's almost at the same height as the pavement, and it didn't used to be. What's caused that difference in about the last 10 years?
Well, I've just explained that. Easterly wind.
Right, but there's
very little westerly wind because you've got the shelter of the town.
Mm-hmm.
It's easterly wind straight in because you've got no longshore drift anymore.
But
not the same longshore drift as what you had.
Well, the breakwater's been there over 40 years, so it can't be the breakwater because it's only happened in the last 10 years.
No, it hasn't. I was talking to a man with a digger and everything,
mm-hmm.
and he said years and years ago he used to be employed by Douglas Council to push the gravel round about. He said, but he never took any away, so it's still there.
So basically, they did used to reprofile it.
Yes, he had to do that, but it's still there. That's no good. Take it away and it doesn't need profiling or anything. It's gone. Anyway, underneath that it says the council are going to spend another 40,000 on the new promenade light panels. They're going to build this wall. They're going to spend $1 million on that,
mm-hmm.
which is not required if you take the stones away. And then they're going to light it up, costing $40,000.
Are you against the idea of it?
It's unbelievable, this stuff.
Well, are you against the idea of things looking nice? I mean, people like to have areas lit up beautifully. They'd love to have the festoon lighting back. They're up in arms about that. What's your issue with?
They want to put these lights on
mm-hmm.
to light up the new wall that they're going to build.
So architectural lighting, yeah.
That's it. But as it is now, it looks fine. Apart from the beach is at the same level as the road.
But so what?
There's a perfectly good wall under there. It just wants dig the gravel away, and they've got the wall back again. You have no problems. It's all done.
So basically, what you'd like to see them do is basically dig the wall down, remove the sand and stone, then leave everything looking as it is.
Don't take the wall down. The wall hasn't been built yet.
No. I meant take the level of the beach down by the wall, so the wall doesn't need to be built, and just leave leave as is.
That's it. Leave it as it is, and then it doesn't cost anything.
Okay. Thanks very much, Wilf. Lovely to hear your comments on that. Do you agree with Wilf? We just don't spend any money. We take away all the stones off Douglas Beach, have them taken away for use in construction, I'd imagine, as he pointed out there, and don't spend any money on lighting because we don't want things to look nice. Okay. Because I was speaking to somebody yesterday who was talking about the island and said that actually we just need to tidy the place up. Okay, maybe make it look nicer. Is it a waste of money just to spend things on aesthetics that make our houses and our homes and our island look nice? If so, why do people decorate their homes? That's a bigger topic. David's on. Hello, David.
Alex, I just want to talk about this thing about listening to Parliament the other day, talking about people that asylum seekers, people who want to come to the Isle of Man. They forget, and I wish the politicians would have some real discussion to tell the population we're a crown dependency. We're not in the UK. We're a great part of Great Britain, and we're a crown dependency.
Mm-hmm.
And the crown dependency, the king looks after us. So if anything goes wrong, we can always write to the king and say to him while he's in hospital, can you come and have a look at the Isle of Man? We're not acting properly.
And that's what the governor is here as a representative of, obviously.
He could step in, but that would be a nuclear option in it.
Mm-hmm.
And before the other guy comes on about the wind turbines, the nuclear option it's going to have to go electricity. But we have to do something. And the gentleman that keeps coming on about...
Are we on wind turbines now or immigration? Sorry, let me get that clear.
I'll stay with immigration then.
Right, okay, go on.
The thing is, the boats don't come from the south of England up to the Isle of Man because they've got to go through England. Anybody who's an asylum seeker, as far as I know, has got to go through the Home Affairs Department in the UK. And then I presume there's a request then into our Crown Office here.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be nice to get somebody on to give us an explanation. The difference, why we're so restrictive, because when you look for deals, this guy keeps trying to sell me PV panels for my roof in the UK. I'm sorry I ever clicked on. And when I do click on and say, yeah, I love this, I've got money to do that, he says, oh, I forgot you're not in the UK. You're a Crown dependency. And then everything goes pear-shaped. And there's a lot of people happening that. You can't get post here. You can't get things delivered through Amazon and all these other places because we're a Crown dependency and not in the UK. And the same for insurance. Leave it with you.
Okay, David. Before you go, one quick question off the back of that then is that... Do you feel, I mean, you touched on two topics there, immigration, then we moved on to us being a Crown dependency and the restrictions that we face and seemingly ever-growing list of restrictions from living in a Crown dependency. Do you feel that the reactions we get to the immigration story about, stop worrying about this, you've got other priorities, do you think that is a symptom of the fact that people don't feel the current administration or, in fact, the current Parliament are listening to the people, addressing the people's priorities, doing things that actually affect people's daily lives?
I would say yes, a definite yes. I meet lots of people week to week, month to month, and I feel the undercurrent of unrest, and I feel that I don't mind the keyboard warriors coming on to me, is the keyboard warriors feeding the frenzy. It's like throwing on the promenade, throwing the fish and chips out when you finish and all the seagulls come down to feed. All right?
Okay, thanks, David. Lovely to hear from you.
Bye.
Cheers. There we go. Do you feel that the priorities are right? Okay, you might feel that people in the executive, in the government, civil service and political, they're following what they feel is their plan, and they feel that long term will bring prosperity. Whereas everyone's sitting here going, I just want a hospital that is properly funded and working properly. I want roads without potholes in. I want government to stop meddling in things that actually are important to me and then properly fund things that are important to me. Okay? Give up on vanity projects or maybe invest in something that makes the island and the people proud. Things like this. I'd love to hear your opinion. 66 13 68. We'll go back to the phones after this.
Meet Jane.
Okay, before I go back to the phones, let's go through a few texts that are coming in. Graham, Alex, the reason refugees don't come here or the Channel Islands is they get no benefits until they've worked here for 5 years. Thank you very much. Text to 762. Eric Cantona had trawlers and sardines. David Quirker's fish and chips. Thank you, David. Thank you to texter 328 who said, did Joni Farragher actually say we raise the Bee Gees? I would rather she made the health service something to boast about. She is a member of that department, yet has nothing to say about the failings. More interested in her own personal agenda, such as getting rid of the bishop. It's what the people want that matters. Of course, this goes down that ever-long argument. She's a member, along with others, of the Department for Health and Social Care, but the hospital, of course, is run at arm's length by Manx Care. Now, whether that's working or not, I challenge the Chief Minister on that, and politicians feel that it still needs time. Thank you to Andy, who says, Alex Wilf has it nailed. Douglas Council are loose free spenders of ratepayers' monies, and ratepayers need value for money, not new diggers and paying for something that could be done at no cost. We do, of course, assume that option hasn't been explored, okay? That maybe they have explored the option of having the stone taken away and it's not economical. I don't know if that's the case, but we always assume one thing, it might be the other. What else have we got here? Good afternoon, Alex, from Terry. Headline news in today's Manx paper. Delayed start to horse trams this season due to the state of Tramway Terrace. Why don't our government just admit they want rid of our heritage railways? Well, I mentioned it yesterday. The invite is still there, Mr. Crookle. You have been invited to Mannin Line. If you reply to my email, that would be great. And you can answer that question. He was asked it in Tynwald, and we didn't get a firm answer as to whether the department is for the railways that they are custodians of for us. Okay? It's not a service they run. It's they look after it as custodians for us, the people. It's our heritage. And thank you to Kenny. I've nothing against Will and agree with him regarding Douglas Beach, but he does need to concentrate more on tidying up Ramsey as a commissioner. Is he and the others not responsible for this? Well, that is a point. It's great to ring in talking about national issues, but you're also a local commissioner too. That seems to echo something about national politicians and local politicians. There was a story about that. I think you'll find it on manxradio.com. Let's go to the lines. And first of all, we've got Mark on wanting to talk about immigration. Hello, Mark.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
Oh, Gollers Gargan. Got on my head. Just a heathen.
Glad to hear it. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I was listening to the debate on immigration, and
Yes.
I was thinking, firstly, what percentage of people on the island are already immigrants rather than native born? I mean, I was born here, but my mother's English.
Mm-hmm.
The government wants another 15,000 people on the island. Well, they're going to be immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
If you look around the world over time, countries which have welcomed immigration have found it very beneficial. America was built on immigration. And the political side aside, you can't say America is not a prosperous country. If you're talking about refugees, often the people who are able to flee are actually the people with the best education and skills. So if we're expecting to get another 15,000 people here, then opening ourselves up to accept immigrants, refugees, etc., evidence has shown throughout the world that it's actually really beneficial to countries which welcome people.
In terms of immigration, because you make a point to the fact that you were born here, but your mother's English. If you go back far enough, I suppose this island is full of immigrants. If you literally go back far enough, because the Vikings aren't native here. Neither were the Irish Celts.
No, and my surname, the first record we can find of it on the island is from the 1340s.
Wow, impressive.
So even the Manx side of my family is immigrants if you go back far enough.
At which point do you think it's more of a political football, immigration, rather than a reality topic is the best way I could put it, that actually people talking about it at high levels in Parliament, in the media, do you feel that reflects reality? Because people get very hot under the collar with their own opinions of it. Do you think that is...
They do.
Is it perception or is it reality?
They do. I think... From what I've heard, some of the people who are against immigration are also against things like the food bank.
Right. Okay.
It's an anti-handout sort of thing. As far as the politicians are concerned, well, other than the fact I think a lot of them are probably immigrants, if you come down to it,
mm-hmm.
I think they're more likely to react in a sense to whoever shouts loudest. And unfortunately, those people who are anti-immigration are the ones who are more likely to speak up. I mean, this is the first time I've spoken up on it. And whether I was living on the island or across, I've always had strong feelings about it. But because I'm not on the opposite side, it's not something I've really felt to talk up about it. It was only the fact you had somebody called Mark making a point I disagreed with. I thought, well, let's make sure that we know that not all the Marks are against immigration.
I'm glad it was done by name choice there, Mark. As a final one before you go then, in terms of, obviously we had policies in recent years of, welcoming a refugee into your home from war-torn countries. Would you be willing to welcome a refugee into your home?
I live in tied accommodation, so I'm not allowed to.
Okay, in principle.
In principle, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Yeah. It's lovely.
I'm single, so it would be easier for me.
Okay, Lovely. Thank you, Mark. It's lovely to speak to you. Do call us again on the Mannin Line. It'd be lovely to hear from you. He was quiet yesterday. I missed him. I was missing some wokeness. Hello, Bonzo.
Hello. Yes, I'm sorry I haven't been about. Yes, things to do over in Davos, I'm afraid.
Oh, obviously. But nice to have you back. Yeah. What would you like to talk about today?
Yes. I've just been listening, actually, to a recording of the goings on in Tynwald and the appalling attitude of Kate Lord-Brennan, Joni Farragher, on her issues on immigration and refugees. Very much typical, I'm afraid, of all the other Comin members I heard speaking on various subjects in that recording. In that the reply was very much one of "How dare you criticise how dare you criticise Comin? We've made this. We're the government. You should just go around and vote for what we tell you." Comin, I think, has started to forget itself and is making the fundamental mistake of starting to believe its own publicity.
Do you feel, Bonzo, though, if that's the case, is that the fault of the Cannon administration effectively letting the power go to their heads, which is what you're implying, or is it the case that the Parliament itself isn't strong enough to stand up collectively to challenge it? You get a few people. We had this mini rebellion on one topic of the Southern MHKs, but no other backbenchers jumped on and said, actually, as a matter of principle, we're against this as well. They all seem to fall in line, and that means there's no opposition, surely.
Well, that would usually be the case, but I think unhappiness is growing amongst the constituents who are therefore transferring that to their MLC, their MHK, and also with members themselves who are increasingly irritated and angered by the fact that Tynwald, which is supposed to be the sovereign body, is overridden a road roughshod over time and time again by a Comin that has its own agenda based on, as Tim Glover so rightly put it, fantasy island ideas.
Well, how would you put that right then, Bonzo? So say our political system at the moment, we vote for an MHK on their manifesto. We don't know what's going to happen as to who's going to be chief minister. When the chief minister's in place, he's got a council of ministers, and they then have their own policies, which is voted for by the other members. We don't really get to exercise our opinion on that until it's all over 5 years later, and then we say, actually, you did a dreadful job. In terms of maybe the UK, which is not a perfect example by any stretch of the imagination, but the UK, at least when they go to the polls, they say, if you vote for this party, this is the policies we will follow. And we don't get a view of that plan when we go to the ballot box, do we?
Well, no, because we don't have a party political system in the same way as the UK, because you essentially have a binary choice. And the leader then sort of echoes the policy. So it's, will I vote for Starmer, or will I vote for Sunak, or whomever? So it's relatively simple. Here, of course, where you have everyone virtually an independent, well, except for three in Tynwald at the moment, then it's a question of which independent is going to band together with other independent, and who are they going to vote for chief minister? And of course, the votes therefore for chief minister don't actually lie with us, in the same way as they don't lie with us for members of the Legislative Council. Now, there's ways of doing this. Firstly, we have to actually have an electoral system where the votes count, because we have two members in each constituency elected by first past the post. And of course, the only other places where that happens is the UK and Belarus in Europe. Not exactly great examples. So we need to go to a system which, if I recall rightly, we actually tried in 2001, of proportional representation under simple single transferable vote. That's where you put 1, 2, 3, 4 preferences. Right? And we do that for both the for both the MHKs and an MHK has to declare themselves, or an MHK candidate has to declare themselves also as a chief minister candidate at the same time. And a poll is then held nationally, simultaneously with the general election poll. And if someone isn't elected as an MHK, then any votes that they have then get split amongst the second and third, whatever preferences. And so that then you can have an all-island elected chief minister, and who can then form a council of ministers, and a fairly voted for House of Keys at the same time, which would allow for parties like the Greens, for example, to be able to be represented in Tynwald, because at the moment it doesn't really matter. The likelihood of actually getting a Green, like in UK, where they suffer the same problem because of the electoral system, those people won't get in. So you can't start to establish any form of party political system at all.
Okay, Bonzo, I'll briefly ask you then, and we'll move on. That, of course, is what you're talking about, widespread political change to the setup and voting and democracy on the island. The problems now, you've just discussed about how you've listened to Tynwald, the issues now. What do you see and what would you like to see happen? Are you wanting radical action in the same way that, we mentioned yesterday about Jersey now following Guernsey and actually booting the government out and saying, no, we want someone new in? Or you're wanting more soft touch?
Well, the hardball option may be actually happening next month with the budget.
Right.
I can see that being strongly voted against. And of course, if Coleman then loses the budget, well, that's essentially a confidence vote, isn't it?
Do you really think the budget will get voted down, though? It's never happened before. There's dissenters who make some political posturing by voting against it, but do you think there's enough disagreement in there? There's enough people who will actually stand up and be counted?
You're starting to see increasing dissent in Tynwald. Well, once upon a time it used to be sort of one or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now you're starting to get consistent blocks of 6, 8 starting to vote against, and that momentum is building. There is great unhappiness, as I say, and I think Tynwald have now got to a point where they've started to have enough, and they want to take back control.
Okay, thank you, Bonzo. Great to hear from you as always, and lovely to have Bonzo on the line. Thank you very much too. Let's go through a few texts here. Okay, the government invested in things like sea terminal, brand new boat, a lovely gas-powered fire station. That was quite a while back. Also, windmills, a nice new promenade. As immigration, there's a difference between legal and illegal, says Des. That's quite a few comments there, all thrown into one. Hi, no to imagination on the Isle of Man. I've seen England, and it's like hell. Also, Ireland is turning into it as well. So oh crikey, the Manxman says, I want to keep this lovely island as the good Isle of Man. I think that's what you're trying to say there. Thank you for that one. What else have we got here? I was born on the Isle of Man, never felt part of society. My parents are English born, and I'm English and have an English surname. The Isle of Man can be a closed shop unless you own a farm or have a relative as your partner. It's a funny place indeed, says Roy. Thank you very much for that. What else have we got here? Oh, thank you. Used to love Mannin Line with general views of the public. Now turn off as it's the same 4 or 5 people with their views. Says 714, who's never wrong. As always, if you want to get a different voice on the Mannin Line, don't rely on everyone else to do it. You pick up the phone and give me a call. It'd be lovely to have a chat. Right. Does anyone know about the company supplying the lighting on Douglas Promenade's new wall? Well, we don't at this point. I'm sure we can find out from Douglas City Council. Also, the Tramway Terrace building. Has it already been agreed to sell it off for development, i.e. apartments, says Francis. They did discuss whether there was a plan for development of it yesterday in Tynwald in answer to questions. And no, nothing at the moment that we know of. So we will keep a watchful eye. But there was that threat, wasn't there, by the infrastructure minister, Tim Crookall. He basically says if we don't sort it out, you don't have horse trams this year. Now, that's putting a gun to the head, isn't it? So We'll see about that. Thank you very much to, who's the person? Ray, who says, countries that have imagination have good hospitals, affordable housing, dentists. We have them, but they're under strain now, so please wake up. Says Jodie Farragher, take a look at the situation from a working class perspective. Your world is worlds apart from working class people. A very angry and demoralised John. So thank you very much for that one. Right, we'll get back to the phones just after this. Okay, running short of time. It's as usual, everyone comes in at the very end. So let's quickly cram a couple of calls in. Tony B is on. Hello, Tony.
Oh, yeah, how you doing?
Not bad, mate. Which skin you goat today?
Right, two things. Bonzo, I just completely can't believe that he's suggesting that somebody of a place of 80,000 people with relatively small footprint should go to proportional representation. It's just complicate. You know, that's a typical thing you'd get from somebody who works in the public sector, not in the private sector. You need to simplify it.
So how would you do it then, Tony? How would you do it?
Combing. Get rid of Combing.
Okay.
First, that's the first thing. Combing is just a little clique that sits within Tynwald and makes decisions and then puts them to Tynwald. Why? Right. Tynwald should be sitting and talking about the issues that we have as voters, not waiting for somebody else to tell them what to do. So the discussions should be limited to things that help the Isle of Man, not stupid things like we should have a policy for immigrants. Give me a break. We're not in the UK, we're not in Dover. What is this? Why can't we just focus on the Isle of Man instead of focusing on something else? And the answer is because it's easier to focus on that than it is to sort out the health service, which they're all supposed to be doing, but everybody who's responsible for that, including Jodie Farragher, all they want to talk about is we'll get rid of the vote for the bishop. Oh, we should have an immigrant policy. Are you stupid? They are. I mean, we don't need an immigrant policy. What we need is a policy about housing, about all the old age pensioners that are out there without proper accommodation. That's what they should be looking at. And they should be fixing the health service, which still doesn't work. Everybody you talk to, how long before I get an appointment? Oh, 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's just appalling.
So
and all they're doing is focusing on something else. So it's a distraction.
Okay, Tony. So if, say, for example, the Chief Minister's listening or some of his spin doctors and communicative people are listening, what's your one-sentence message then as to what you would like to see done right now?
Start doing what you said you were going to do at the very start of the election last year. Openness, focus, get DOI to do what they're supposed to be doing and get all the other so-called ministers to do their job. We've got a situation where we spend money we haven't got. And we've got a Treasury Minister who doesn't know what he's talking about. It's just unbelievable.
In what sense? What would you say the Treasury Minister doesn't know what he's talking about?
Well, I'll give you a few examples, shall I?
Oh.
We keep spending money on things that are just projects that don't need to be done. They've got nothing to do with social care. They've got to do with, we'll build a new office for the licensing group. We'll build a new trash centre in Douglas. I mean, give me a break. Why do we need those things? Are they really, really that urgent? But we spend £6 million on that, and then we spend a few more million on people that are working on the boat. It's just we throw good money after bad. There's no approach or attempt to do things lower cost. It's just spend more money. We'll get a report on it. We must have spent £50 million this year on reports from so-called experts who don't even live here.
Okay.
Ask the government how much they've spent on their so-called reports.
Okay, Tony. Well,
they don't do anything for us at all. They need to start doing what their job is and stop coming in with all these wonderful ideas about how we should change things.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Thanks for that. I'm going to quickly go to Jed, who's been on the line, because he's got about a couple of minutes left. Hello, Jed. How are you?
Hi, good. Just picking up on a few points earlier on in the show. It's worth noting that the Isle of Man has £2.5 million foreign aid. It's all on the website. You know, it's places like Ukraine and Pakistan and Afghanistan that have benefited from our assistance. So we do look after other people, and that is run through our government. It is ironic that If you follow the Rwanda story and the acceptance of refugees, the British government have paid on now, 250 million, and they haven't even accepted anybody there. Maybe we've missed a trick on that one. But just following up on some of the great calls as well today, Mark and Bonzo, and even Tony B waxing lyrical about the state of discord in the government. The story, say, of the swimming pool and the halfway horse tram, isn't there a message out there? Isn't there something quite clear that if we were in a good financial state, these things would be fixed? Am I right?
Probably, yes. So you're basically saying that the reason that all these things are issues is that the government won't come out and tell us, but bluntly, that actually the pot is dry and we've spent it all.
Well, look back over 10 years of government, and I think any MHK who's been in for those 2 terms needs to think seriously about trying to be re-elected, because it's a catastrophic failure. We have had nothing new built, for the people of the Isle of Man. Okay, that's quite obvious. That there's no amenities. The likes of the NSC hemorrhaging £300,000, that's a headline that's quickly disappeared. But these things like the swimming pool and the horse tram, they just go through as a matter of course. But the message is, we mustn't have any spare cash. And I'd like a brave MHK or a brave minister to actually come clean and tell us that is the case.
Because let's be honest, you and I are at our time to the end now, but let's be honest, we've spent money like water on some big projects. They've been very public. So do you think that's basically where we've raided a piggy bank and the piggy bank's empty?
I think it's just amateurs in charge, the purse strings just not carefully looked at. It's just a total mess, really, isn't it?
Okay. Thank you, Jed. Thanks for your call. Gonna have to go. Not the positive end to the show we had yesterday. But thank you very much for all your calls. Thank you very much for your text as well. And thank you for making me feel so welcome here on the Mannin Line. Thank you to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Tomorrow, Stu Peters and Jane Poole Wilson, the MHKs for Middle, are going to be grilled by you, and Phil Gorn is in the chair. Have a lovely Thursday. I'll speak to you in about 2 hours' time. Christy's up next. Take care. Ta-da.